Meet Golbo. Golbo is an incredibly silly guy, and he is part of a wonderful little web series called Zooliminology by QuiietJay. Zooliminology offers a unique take on the liminal genre. While most media portrays ungodly creatures lurking in liminal spaces, Zooliminology turns that idea on its head and asks the question, what if liminality wasn't terrifying? What if the creatures in these spaces were just little guys? The series highlights the beauty and absurdity of these spaces through a cozy and humorous lens, because really, who decided they had to be scary in the first place? Today, we are going to delve into QuiietJay's fascinating project and study how it defies expectations to bring a fresh, unique twist on the liminal genre. The way that Zooliminology is presented to the viewer is through these kind of scuffed research tapes describing phenomena in the region known as the far plane. For background, the far plane is what the liminal plane of reality is referred to in this universe. Even from the first video posted about the Zooliminology project, titled Golbo Care Guide, you immediately understand the tone of this project. A warm voice will welcome you and show a flat, floppy creature that you can't help but empathize with.
Do you know what this entity is? It is called a Golbo.
He's so cute, and I just want to take care of him. Why is he crying? Anyways, the video will describe the strange biological traits of Golbo, one of the key things being that he doesn't have any bones. The researchers will advise against you picking up Golbo because he will bend uncomfortably, and we don't want that for a little guy. So, you might notice that this video is a care guide. In fact, all the videos about Zooliminology entities are care guides. The reason for this is because, well, I'll just have one of the research team members say it.
Our project's purpose, above all else, is two things: to understand the far plane and to protect it.
Nothing in the far planes is, at least to our knowledge, any sort of threat. In fact, us humans are more of a threat to them than they are to us. So, it is our duty to care for these creatures. Think of it like a strange little wildlife sanctuary of sorts. The low-budget charm of this project is further amplified by the research team, because every person on this team is just doing their best and having a good time, even though they are barely funded enough to afford 5 cinder blocks. This can be seen in random little scenes across the care guides, one of my favorites being the Longlegs deconstruction demonstration.
Although deconstruction has not yet been observed, researchers have made a simulation of what Longlegs deconstruction could look like.
Budget? That did not explode.
What
happened?
What? That did not explode.
Cinema. There's also other subtle things about the research team that really bring this project to life, such as each team member having a different codename and a unique personality. I definitely feel like I could hang out with any of these guys. They just seem like a cool crowd. The Zooliminology research team serves as a comfortable medium for exploring the phenomena of the far plane, but this is only a precursor to the main focus of the project, which is the entities. The far plane entities are the heart of the Zooliminology project. In fact, the first post made about Zooliminology on Tumblr back in 2023 was a picture of this tall giraffe-like entity known as a strider. When I first saw the strider, I was immediately reminded of Dave, who is a large entity that walks in the background of a temporal storm in Vintage Story. In both cases, the creatures are large and quite distant and do not pose any immediate threat. Seeing as the animal they are based on, the giraffe, is an herbivore who is very much a gentle giant, I imagine them acting quite similarly. In addition, the striders release little bubbles as a byproduct, which is the start of an ongoing theme in future entries of water and bubble-based life forms. Spumes are, in fact, creatures made entirely of bubbles, or I guess a texture really similar to bubbles. It really is no surprise why bubbles are a recurring theme in the Zooliminology project. The whole point of Zooliminology is to make SCPs seem pretty friendly, and can you say the word bubble angrily? Probably not. Following the theme of water, I would like to now introduce you to a unique entry in the YouTube channel, Water 2. As so eloquently said by this YouTube commenter, if water is so good, why don't they make water too? They just did. Water 2 is super similar to normal water, with one of the main differences being that you can get a little intoxicated drinking it, and might end up in the Family Guy death pose. This state is also described as drunk 2. You can find Water 2 in the pools section of the far plane, pretty similar to that one infinite poolscape liminal game that was popular a while ago. The entities I mentioned previously, the spumes and the Stratus bubbles, and also creatures like droplets, are all made of Water 2 instead of water. There's also a little secret in the video describing Water 2 when it freezes into Snow 2, where there is a house with Christmas lights that move like a snake. These little guys are entities too, called light mimics. With that, I would like to bring up an artistic choice that the Zooliminology project exhibits that I think really contributes to the non-threatening atmosphere it brings to the table. In almost all of the entries, the creatures do not make direct eye contact with the photographer. They're usually shown in groups, just existing. If someone looks at a creepypasta or something online, you might notice that a lot of these terrifying creatures will be looking directly at you. As far as evolutionary biology goes, and perhaps to also validate the feelings of introverts that might be watching this video, eye contact is scary. There have been several studies about this before, but a small one I want to bring up is a short study by Song-Im Lee about birds. Him and his team tested how a group of birds would react if the team approached them while maintaining direct eye contact versus how they would react when they avoid eye contact while approaching. When keeping direct eye contact, the birds were more likely to flee as a predator-prey response because they saw eye contact as a perceived threat. In a similar vein, if you ever somehow find yourself face-to-face with a bear, you should probably avoid eye contact with it because it can be seen as a challenge or aggressive behavior. Zooliminology creatures are mostly shown in groups with each other, just minding their own business in their pictures. One of the only entities I saw that doesn't follow this rule is the sockworm, and if I'm being honest, I do find this guy to be pretty unnerving compared to the other creatures. Apparently he's just a really shy guy, but his face is a little scary. The other entities aren't like him though. Okay, post-editing Auga here. Now that I'm actually looking at this a second time, he might actually not be looking directly at the viewer. It looks like his face might be pointed in the other direction. I don't know why I interpreted the white part as his mouth at first, but it might not be the case. My bad. Speaking of Sockworm, another part of his image that makes him threatening is the dark ball pit environment he's in. Zooliminology really leaves no stone unturned in the immersion of this project, and, in addition to the entities and the goofy research team, also creates fascinating locations in the far plains where these creatures can be found. When you step foot into the far plains, there are various locations you can end up in. The method to entering the far plains is, vaguely, by clipping in the real world, but for all intents and purposes, the people in the research team can just click a pen and be teleported there. Liminal spaces tend to feel pretty large and endless in most media, and the locations in Zooliminology are no exception. The first location the research team discovered in this realm is the far plains, which is essentially a big field of grass. And yes, that's a pun. The big striders that release bubbles that I was talking about earlier are found here, alongside two aerodynamic creatures called kites and maks. While most Zooliminology entities tend to avoid researchers, maks are an exception. They are really sweet and fond of human touch. You can even see Theta petting it in the Zooliminology orientation video. In a semi-recent Tumblr entry, creatures known as dandelions were also shown in the far plains, which, okay, this is incredibly Rainworld core, but I love them. The Rainworld inspiration is pretty prominent in some entries such as the Sailor as well. Speaking of Rainworld, if you keep walking out in the far plains, you might come across the Rain Lot, which is always raining and mostly flat and empty outside of these little guys called ghosts. Now you might think these guys are incredibly cute, but it's important to note that one researcher stated in the website that they have malice in their eyes. Yeah, I could see it. Even though they might seem smart to the unknowing eye, these guys have the worst survival instincts. They need the rain to survive, but also actively go under umbrellas if given the chance, and just seem generally unaware that water is good and keeps them alive, and they shrivel up without it, so researchers have to pay extra close attention to them. Another exterior area you might come across is a snowy landscape called winter. The weather does not ever change, and it is always snowing in here. This is home to the previously mentioned Snow 2, and another gigantic entity called Fogwalkers. This area might seem quiet or dark, but it's certainly not threatening, just serene. There are several other really cool locations that you can look at in the Zooliminology website that I will link in the description, but the last one I will bring up in this video is Brutalia. Brutalia is a large geometric area that honestly reminds me of an unfinished 3D modeling project. Lots of polygons, but no colors or textures. The only creatures you can find here are longlegs, which I guess makes sense considering that Brutalia is made up of a bunch of buildings and spiders tend to enjoy chilling in buildings. Longlegs are incredibly adorable, although it's important to note that some of them can get really big, like really, really big. They wouldn't go out of their way to hurt you, but maybe don't go near a large one in case it makes any movements and squashes you. Generally speaking, the locations in the far plane are large and mostly empty, similar to most liminal spaces. You can enter different environments, and there certainly is an ecosystem, but for the most part, the company you would find there would mostly just be your fellow research team members. Most areas here are pretty quiet and meditative. I can imagine treating this place as a kind of safe space to escape real life. The concept of treating a liminal space as a way to escape reality has certainly been explored before. When I think of it, I think of Otherside Picnic, which is a yuri anime about a girl named Sorwo who accidentally enters an alternate reality known as the Other Side and initially treats it as a sanctuary of sorts. But that anime definitely focuses on the thrill and horrors of the liminal dimensions, with scary monsters that can kill you, while Zooliminology actively avoids those. Zooliminology is a really cool project with a unique take on the liminal design space. Kind of crazy to imagine that one of the first examples of this, at least that I was exposed to, was the backrooms, which was then expanded into things like infinite IKEAs, hotels, or pools, and then into expansive worlds like the one in Zooliminology, which has those locations and more. While I have definitely had my fair share of liminal world experience as someone who hyperfixates on media like this pretty often, Zooliminology stood out to me because it goes against the unnerving and horror vibes of liminality, and instead makes it seem like a safe space to learn and care for interesting creatures. If you want to learn more about Zooliminology, I highly recommend checking out QuiietJay's YouTube channel to start with. There are more creatures I didn't even mention in this video that you can learn about there, like Prince. And if you still want to learn more about Zooliminology past that, you can also check out the website and Tumblr pages. I have links to all of these in the description. After checking all this stuff out, do you have a favorite entity? I'm personally partial to the Striders and, of course, Golbo, but I'd love to hear about your guys' thoughts on the entities in the comments as well. And if you like content like this, please subscribe. I love looking at interesting pieces of media like this that sometimes might go under the radar and making videos about them. Thank you again for watching this video and exploring Zooliminology with me. Bye bye!